Alright, hi again YouTube. Me and Neflewitz, the guy running this channel, have decided that we're going to start telling the story of our first adventure into a Pokemon campaign. Now, there aren't any official Pokemon RPGs, but one day we were talking and we were like, so what would happen if the Pokemon world had like real world physics, like cause and effect, like you get zapped by a Pikachu using Thundershock and you get electrocuted, like seriously injured. You know, like Ash should have done the first episode ever, or like Charizard used Flamethrower on you and suddenly you have no hair. Well, we talked about this and decided let's make a game out of this. I was like, sure, I guess I'll run it, whatever. So I had the two guys, Neflewitz and another buddy of ours that I don't know if he's shown up in a couple other videos. He was our sound technician for the one and only Halo video that we made, and like it was anyway. So we were like, okay, so let's see where this takes us, because this could be really fun. So we had two characters. We had one character, his name's Foe. He's run by Neflewitz. He's a 16-year-old little engineer, brilliant kid that, like, the first thing that he was really like, I'm gonna do thing. He was like, I'm gonna build power armor with magnemites in it, and I was like, no, you're not. I mean, later. After the campaign was over with, he probably would have been at a technical level where, yeah, he could. But I mean, you're 16, come on. But he had those kind of ideas. The other guy in our party was that was run by our buddy. His name was Steve, and he was really actually a background character. He really hardly ever had a whole lot of flavor. He added some fun stuff, but he didn't really seem to be like a character. So I put together the first campaign. I was like, all right, everybody, all two people, everybody, give me starter Pokemon that you want, so I can improve them, because I'm not going to let people start with Larvitar or super rare Pokemon that could be potentially dangerous. So the guy, or Steve, is like, I'm going to start with a Squirtle. It's like it's a starter Pokemon, so I was like, cool, it's a Squirtle, and then Foe's like, I'm going to start with a Magikarp. So I was talking with him about this, and I was like, you know, by starting with a Magikarp, you're pretty much consigning yourself to doing nothing but being able to smack things with having your Magikarp smack things, literally, until it evolves into a Gyarados, right? And he's like, yeah, but it'll be a Gyarados. I was like, it's going to be a while before it's a Gyarados. I know. It'll be alright. Alright, so start playing the campaign, and how I set it up is that I'm like, alright, I'll give you guys some dollars. I had like a list of publicly accessible things from Pokemarts, like Pokeballs, basic antidotes, over-the-counter kind of things, with prices, and I was like, yeah, you guys can look through this, or you can buy this stuff, and while you're at the store, you see outside that there's like some sort of commotion happening by the sewer thing. Like, you see some construction guys over there. You see them running away, and you see one of the guys gets to the top and then gets pulled back down screaming. Like, okay. So that's how this starts. Is a technician getting dragged into the sewer area screaming, and they're fine. Like, alright, we're gonna go investigate this, because, you know, we're trying to, we want to become Pokemon adventurers. So we'll start by investigating town's problems, and eventually we might get noticed, might start getting paid for this. That'd be cool. So Foe and Steve climb down the sewer, into the sewer area, sewer access area, and I'm like, okay, so all you see at the bottom of the thing, or bottom of the ladder, is a pile of bones with some shredded clothes, a hard hat. It's gruesome. It's like, okay, I want to look over Foe's like, I want to look over the body. I was like, okay. He was a technician, so I was trying to go over in my head, what would this guy normally have on him as a technician in the Pokemon universe? So I was like, alright, he has a tool belt, a cell phone, I guess. They're like, oh, we're going to take that. I want the tool belt, because I'm an engineer, so I want a tool belt. Okay, so he's like, okay, what's on it? A hammer, screwdriver, probably like a wrench, maybe like a tape measure, standard tool belt stuff, right? So they're like, alright, so they look around, and I tell them like they can see down the like. Basically, I'm trying to describe a scene out of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like the 90s cartoon, when they're down in the sewers, and there's like basically like a man-sized sewer hallway with like about 3 inches of water on the ground. But I was like, okay, so the like little holes in the sides of the walls, where normal water comes down and drains into the sewer, those are clogged up by some sort of like by like material branches, stuffing, weird stuff. And I was like, all right, everybody roll perception, because like the stats that I had in this game is I had everybody have like a perception stat, which is basically a combination of like how acute your senses are combined with what your gut tells you. Your intelligence, which is straight up how smart you are, and your athletics, which is basically a mix of how agile and strong you are. And whatever class you are can help, gives you bonuses in certain areas. Like a scientist is obviously going to have a higher intelligence score than like an adventurer or a ranger. But a ranger is obviously going to have a much higher athletic score because, you know, he's out there in the wild a lot more. Anyway, I have them start. They start looking around some more because that's pretty much, you know, standard adventurer. I'm going to look around the area, see what I can find, and they see some rat-a-tats. They're like, okay, so they go to approach one of these nests. They knock around the junk in the hole in the wall. And like a couple rat-a-tat, like 3 rat-a-tat come out and like get angry, and I have them like roll some sort of fake initiative thing, because I mean, I'm gonna be honest, like 90% of this campaign I was flying by the seat of my pants on like what stats did, what loot was. Like after a certain, like I'd written down what stats Pokemon had like in the game, but after a certain point it just got stupid. Like anyway.
We only kept track of HP.
Yeah, by a certain point, they only kept track of HP. So anyway, now this particular scene became very iconic for the rest of the campaign. And, in fact, still gets brought up several times in whatever role-playing games that we're in, is Foe goes, I take out my hammer.
Would you like me to explain my thought process here?
Maybe in a second. But, okay. It wasn't immediately, it was I take out my hammer. It was first, okay, so can I take out my Magikarp? I gave his Magikarp, like, the ability, the splash, which I was like, which I was a little bit more generous than even the regular game was. And I was like,
I think you gave me tackle as well.
Okay, maybe tackle too. I was like, okay, the splash does some damage if there's water nearby. Whatever. And I was like, yeah, there's not enough water to really be effective with your Magikarp at all. He's like, alright, so I take out my hammer. What was your thought process here?
Okay, so my thought process here was, I don't have enough water to make Magikarp useful, and Steve had his Squirtle, which knew, I think it was Tackle and Bubble Beam at the time, if it even had Bubble Beam, and these Rattatas were still going to attack me, so I thought, turnabout is fair play, and I will attack one of them to try and, you know, make sure they knew I meant business.
Alright, so I take out my hammer, and I swing at a Rattata. You know, as a game master here, this is really a turning point on what exactly the flavor of this campaign was going to be. As soon as I said, okay, you hit it after a successful athletics check, because, I mean, small target, like, you hit it, and you crushed its skull and its buddies ran away because they got scared. As soon as I said that, and as soon as that happened, I knew what exactly the flavor of the rest of this campaign was going to be. Alright, so, that happened. Steve, they ended up going through a couple nests. They found, like, some antidotes or something.
Elixirs.
Elixirs.
4 elixirs in a row.
A bunch of elixirs.
Rolled on different numbers of the die. Not the same thing over and over again.
Anyway, because I was BSing the system, and there was a method to my madness at that time, because I did have a certain, okay, if it's like blank to blank, it's this, if it's blank to blank, it's this, and it's blank to blank, it's this. And they just kept having to roll the numbers that I had elixirs for. Which, anyway, back to the story. So they keep going through the sewer while they're on their journey. Like, they start hearing, they start going down the sewer, and it basically came down to a T. Like, they came down this way, and then it like, came off into 2 directions. They're like, all right, I'm gonna listen to see if I can hear anything. Which honestly, I can't even remember what. Oh yeah, this is how I hooked them in. Was that when after they fought those Rattatas, I told them they heard voices, or they heard a voice, and made them start using like a combined intellect or intelligence perception check to see if they could tell where it was coming from. Well, I'm pretty sure neither of them actually made the check, but I was like, fine, well, I needed to get them in. So I was like, all right, you hear it coming down from the end of the hall, and they get to the end of the T. They did another one. I was like, all right, it's coming down to the left, and it goes down about 15 feet, and then it turns again. So they end up going down there about 15 feet, and it turns again. As you get closer, or you can tell you're getting closer to the voices, or to the voice, singular. Steve was like, I'm going to poke my head around the corner and see if I can look at it, to see if there's somebody around the corner. It's like, yeah, there's, I described like this, kind of a tattered hobo kind of guy, is, like, sitting there with a big Raticate, petting it and talking to it, and basically talking about how, he was using or how he could, I guess, I didn't even come up with, like, a rational explanation for this. I was like, yeah, he can control the Rattatas to, and he's clog up basically try and shut down the city sewer. Didn't really have a reason why. I guess he was some sort of anarchist or something. Anyway, but the guy ended up hearing him, because of the water. Basically, they stepped in the water wrong. It sounded like, you know, what happens when you step in a puddle? It makes noise. And so the guy sticks his Raticate on it. So I had him do like an initiative thing again. It was like a combined initiative / speed test, because I mean I did have the speed stat on there. And what happened was Steve he had a Squirtle out, and he was like, all right, I'm going to have my Squirtle use Tackle on the Raticate. And the Raticate came straight at him. So I described a scene where the Squirtle came, or like the Raticate went to jump at Steve, and the Squirtle came out from the side and just like clobbered it, like did a jump hit, and like they both went off in a corner. I was like, all right, so Foe, what do you do? He's like, all right, I'm going to take out my magic art. Okay, all right, I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to start beating this guy with my magic art.
Well, there wasn't enough water.
Excuses, man. There wasn't enough water. But I mean, I'm not saying it was a bad tactic by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, if I remember right, you wouldn't let me use the hammer again.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't let him use the hammer to just straight out kill somebody. I'm like, you're 16, you don't have the emotional capacity to do that. So, it ends up in this like, huge 15-20 minute brawl that ends up, I specifically made it so that the Raticate was a wild Raticate, even though it was being influenced by this hobo. So Steve ended up knocking it out, and in this universe, knocking it out means like, hey, you can use a Pokeball on it and not have to go through any bullcrap. So used a Pokeball on him. He had a Raticate, which that was super cool. I always thought it was so super stupid that you would knock out a Pokemon and not be able to capture it. That'd be like the perfect time to catch it. Oh, it's unconscious. You can't do anything because that's wrong, or you know, some such. So the brawl ended up with the Magikarp losing HP, as well as getting some fun permanent status changes to it. Steve with the Wild Raticate, that was cool. And but afterwards, Steve was like, I don't really want this Raticate. Like, I mean, I have it, but can I trade this with anybody? And I was like, all right, you can search around town for like a breeding center or something that's like, hey, or a Pokemon center, to be like, hey, this is a thing. Can anybody want this? And I was like, eventually I came up with a combination of bullshit rolls that basically ended up with, yeah, okay, so you found this kid that has a Geodude that wants Eradicate because he doesn't want to evolve, or he doesn't want to work to evolve a Rattata or some such. So he's like, cool, I get a Geodude, sweet deal. So he has a Squirtle and a Geodude now. And Foe was just kind of like, okay, so I'm going to take this guy in, because I'm going to turn this guy into the cops, because that seems kind of like the right thing to do. He says after he, like, beat the guy unconscious with a Magikarp. So he turns him in, and the police was like, oh, that's cool. Here's a reward. This guy's going to go, he's going to get put away into an insane asylum. And, yeah, thanks, kid. Essentially kind of get pat on the back, here, have some cash, because you did something good. and I left it there for the first adventure, because like how I set this up, how I set the adventures up was like each adventure only took like an hour and a half, and it was really cool because it was really episodic. Because of that, I didn't want to immediately go, oh, you guys, you did something good, so we're gonna call you guys whenever we have a problem. I didn't want to hop straight into that because I thought that was really stupid to do to just some random dude on the street and a 16-year-old. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna make them work for it, and that's when the second adventure came in. But I'm gonna make that in the next episode. This is Crackerbox signing off with Pokemon.